guys, welcome back to another episode of Conversation with Muse. On this episode, we are going to be speaking about what is good branding, how to identify a good logo, and even how to outsource work. So, on today's episode, I have a really great friend of mine, a design genius. We have worked together for years. I want you guys to welcome my good friend and my business associate, Lawrence. Hi, Lawrence. Welcome to the show.
The crowd goes wild.
Crowd goes wild. I'm so glad to finally have you on an episode of the show. So, welcome. So, Lawrence, I generally like to start the podcast with an icebreaker. I feel like we don't have to break the ice. So, just for people to get a little glimpse into who you are, if you were stuck on a deserted island, what three movies would you pick to watch for the rest of your life?
The Matrix. I
Okay.
want to say the Matrix 1, 2, and 3, and then I'll take 4. But the Matrix 1, for sure, 100%, no doubt, without a doubt.
Okay.
Um, I'll take shows. I like shows better than movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take something like maybe a Game of Thrones type of show,
Okay.
or something sci-fi. There's this new show called Raised by Wolves that I really love. It's about mutant robots that are basically tasked to repopulate a different planet with humans. I love that. So yeah, that's what I'll do.
So it would be The Matrix, the first Matrix, Raised by Wolves.
Boom.
But then what's the third one? That's it?
I think I'll take something like Game of Thrones, long, that I can just spend my time.
Has time.
You know,
Okay. All right.
and just like a really intricate storylines with multiple characters, where there's like multiple leads, and the lead dies, and he's like, oh, now what happens? You know.
Okay. So, okay, that's a good three. For some reason, I was expecting The Matrix.
Yeah.
So that was good. All right, cool. So
Wait, how
tell
about you?
me, oh my gosh. So I'm not big on I'm big on like comic relief and just like being and not having to think about a lot of things. So for sure, this is gonna seem so stupid, but Sex and the City would just be the movie, not the like series, but the movie. Don't laugh at me.
Okay. All right.
That would movie or show. I'll take The Office because I can rewatch that all the
Okay.
time, and then I'll take Martin. So through and through, because again,
That's a lot of time then.
I'm not the I don't watch outside of like Marvel movies. I'm not big on anything that
Of Marvel.
triggers me. So yeah, that's it. I think that would be what I should.
Thinking like all of Marvel would be cool, because that's like,
Yeah, so if I could
you
like
know,
pack up
things
Disney
are made.
Plus and put that on the island with me, then that'll be ideal. But
Can't
yeah.
be mad at that.
Yeah, I want you to tell the audience a little bit about just yourself and kind of what it is that you do.
So 2022, what I do, well, my job, I'll start with my job, right? My job is a designer. I work as a designer. And I'll stop right there. I do work in branding, different types of things. But I would say that I would start as being a designer. I think that beyond that, but the thing is that like I'm moving into a space personally, right? Where like I'm not gonna be like tied to these titles or bound to any of these things, or have like, because some of these things sometimes like put limitations on you, right? So like my thing is to be more, do more, right?
Yeah.
And be whatever I want, and be whoever I want, and do whatever I want. So I'm a designer, and I do a bunch of stuff. I work in real estate as well. I'm an investor, so on and so forth. But designer, I think like encapsulates a lot of things, because I approach everything as a designer, right? So whether it's an investment or something that I'm working on, I
Hmm.
want to control it. I want to make sure, like, what are the use cases for it? What does it look like? What is the experience? I approach everything as a designer.
Yeah.
So I guess that's that. I'll go with that.
I think that's a great answer because that was going to lead me to my next question as far as how you got into art and design, because I think you touched on it really great where you say you approach everything from a design perspective. And we've been friends for a while. So if we have a conversation about something, it always goes to like the intricate in the design and like you take it to another level. So how did you get into art and design?
That's a great question. I think I just fell in it. But if you really like, I sort of did fall into it. However, if you look, if I look back hard enough at like my childhood, long enough, I mean, uh, far back enough, I think that I was gonna be a designer anyways, right? So like, when I was kid, when I was a kid, we used to make like our own toys out of wires, right? Because we didn't have no toys, so we used to make our own toys. So like, you'd have to design like who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, what is the color palette of that? I'm not thinking what is the color palette of this toy, but I'm just like, oh, I think this guy looks good in this, whatever. Let's make him a mask, and so we'll do that out of like electrical wire. As a kid, we used to be obsessed with logos, right? All these things that you can't have, right? Used to put the Nike check right here when I used to have hair.
Yeah.
Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I used to draw logos all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
And so I never I never like picked up on this. I thought that this was like what everybody did, right? I guess a lot of people did do that. A lot of people did, get the logos on their head, but I used to draw logos all the time. I asked as a child to be put in art school. That's one of the things that I asked. I asked for many things, right? And I'm the youngest by like 16 years.
Okay.
So I feel like my mom tried really hard with my brother to make it to, he was like an athlete growing up. He was in like all these sports or whatever. He didn't really have the discipline or what it takes to be an athlete, whatever. Life goes on. He grew up. My sister was like in art, my mom really invested into her, like becoming like a pianist or something cool, right? Nothing ever happened. And those were the two things that I wanted to do. I wanted to be an athlete and a creative.
Before you continue,
16 years later.
Before you continue, was that because that's what your siblings were doing? You kind of wanted to emulate that?
No.
Okay.
That was just what I was interested in as a kid.
Okay.
But I know that my mom was like, like I spent so many years with these other two kids and they really didn't do anything. So it was like, this is just like a kid's thing. And so I would put myself in sports and like, I would get the help, but I didn't have like, hey, let's make this little kid into a pro athlete, or let's actually work as a unit to make this kid like a world-class artist, right? That went to my siblings. Then I feel like they sort of like gave up, but regardless, stuff like that is in you, right? And then ultimately you choose to pursue it or you don't, right?
Yeah.
So early on, I think because of like how I used to draw when I was a kid, I'm talking like 7, 8, 9, 10. It just kind of like, and it went to sleep kind of like in high school. I was an athlete in high school, but like the creative side just kind of like got sleepy. Then after high school, I was in the military. I was not doing anything related to either of those things. But when I left the military, I was like, well, what do I want to do, right? So I started going to school.
Okay, yeah.
And then one thing led to the next. I found myself in art school, and I was like, I actually don't want to be an artist. I want to be a designer, right? Because like artists are making stuff that like I want to make stuff that is gonna have a use, right? And so then I ended up in graphic design school. I actually went to architecture school as well. So it was kind of like a domino. It was kind of like a domino or events, right? Yeah.
Okay. So because you say you went to art school, then you went to graphic design school and architectural school. So you kind of have, at some point in life, you just kind of have this design mentality. Like, there's something
Yeah,
in
yeah,
here.
yeah.
So the threads were kind of just connecting. You just didn't know how, when they were
Pretty
connecting.
much, pretty much. I had no guidance, so I was kind of figuring it out. After architecture school, I took a whole year off because I was like, well, like I did an internship with this architect, and what I realized was that architects have an awesome job, but it doesn't turn awesome for most architects until the end of their life, right? So you don't just get this awesome building to design. You need to put in, obviously, you need to put in work for everything in life. But I'm talking about, like, I looked at the history books, and when these designers, when these architects made their masterpieces, they died within 10 years
Oh,
because the budgets are so, like, imagine it's a building. We're talking like and now these days we're talking about sometimes billions of dollars. If you
yeah.
want to do something that is, and that's what I'm interested in. If you want to do something that is revolutionary, something that's innovative, if you want to push the boundary, right? Then it takes, for architects, it takes big budgets.
Yeah.
You know, it takes people to trust you. Somebody needs to say, hey, I'm going to give you, I don't know, $500 million. Here's the budget. Make me a concert hall, or make me
A
I'm going to give you
stadium or something.
$10 million. Make me a home. You have to trust that person, and then that person has to have and then the projects. Here's what turned me off. The projects last so long, and I know that I don't have, like, I cannot, I don't want to work on something for 5 years.
Okay.
I want to work on something for 6 months or less, just because my attention is just not there.
Yeah.
Right? I'll get bored really quick. So I wanted to have short projects. And then I saw that this is when I did the internship, this guy, he did well for himself, but he had, like, a pool, a bathroom, this, that, the other. So literally, I would sit next to him on his desk, and he would pull up a pool, change one side, print it, sign it, sell it. So I'm like, you're not doing anything creative. He didn't do anything creative, right? And so I was like, I don't want to do this. This sucks. Because they really glamorize it in school, but in reality, I was like, this kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm out. And I just kind of, like, I finished architecture school. I didn't become an architect, but I finished where I was. I completed that, like,
course, or
you have to do a 3-year program
phase.
first.
Okay.
I did that, and then I took a year off, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And ended up deciding to, going to art school, whatever. So that's basically what happened.
Okay. So that's interesting because it puts into perspective a lot of kind of your baseline, right? Where you come from and kind of where you are now in building pillars. Like, I can jump into conversations about how we speak about you want to design chairs and all that stuff, but that's a different conversation. The premise of what you just mentioned is, how you got into graphic design or branding and all of that stuff. I'll start with the easiest thing first. What is branding, and why is it even important for any business to have branding as something that they focus on in the inception of the business?
Branding and a brand are two different things.
Yes.
There's branding. There's what is a brand, and then also we end up having a conversation about a brand identity. 3 different things. So, like, what is a brand? Let's start there. I think that's the first layer. A brand is nothing but your opinion of something or someone.
Okay.
Right? That's literally it. So, what is your opinion of me? That is my brand.
Okay.
What is my opinion? What is, like, a group of people opinion of me? That is my brand.
Okay.
And everything and everyone has a brand, whether you have worked on it, whether you actively work on it in order to, for lack of a better word, manipulate how people think
and change that perception. Okay.
To shift the perception, right? Manipulation kind of has a negative connotation, but that is the word. It doesn't have to be negative. So that is a brand. right? What do people think of something? So what do you think of like any of the great businesses or great people of the world, right? Now that is like the top of the pyramid. Again,
Yes.
the first skin of the onion. Under that, you have like, what did that person do in order to get a group of people to think about them that way? Or what did that company do in order to get a group of people to think a certain way about them, good or bad? Sometimes people or like companies do something by mistake and then negatively changes their perception. That is your brand as well, right?
Okay.
So that is branding. The things that we do, my branding is what I do in order to cause the way you're gonna think of me. Again, this is as I have defined it. So brand is external, branding is internal. Why I wore this shirt today, right? I wore this shirt today in a ultimately, right? And you can peel all the psychological layers, right? Ultimately, I wore this shirt not only because I like it or whatever, because I think it represents like it's a good representation of who I think I am. But ultimately, if I had wore a different shirt, the people who are seeing me would probably think slightly different, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
But this kind of fits my persona. Creative, this, whatever, risk taker. Like, I'll wear this shirt. You know what I'm saying? So that's branding. And then the brand identity is the markers, right? Like in business, like insurance companies have like a logo. It's no coincidence that like State Farm is red and the Allstate is blue and Geico, has a lizard. That's a brand identity. Those are the markers. 50 minutes or less, that's a brand identity thing. It actually goes into branding as well, but that's a brand identity. It is marking who that is. That is McDonald's. That's a marker. That's part of your brand identity. The red can, that's a part of the brand identity. See what I'm saying?
So it's what they have
I'm
done
not gonna say the name of the red can.
So it's what kind of,
but the red can.
Yeah. So it's kind of what they have done to let us know who they are, and what they have built. Got it. Okay.
Right. Like a logo is part of your brand identity.
Got it.
It's not your brand. Your brand is what people think.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that's perfect, because I was gonna say give me an example of that, but you just did, where you kind of said the logo is a part of the second layer, which is the brand identity, where the brand itself is what does people think McDonald's is, or what does people perceive Nike to be, or what does people perceive Louis Vuitton to be. It's exclusive, it's luxury, but then the identity is kind of the things that associate, like, oh, okay, that's kind of what it. Got it. Okay. All right, so I feel like that was a great explanation of what is branding and what is a brand. And for putting together a brand identity, how do you conceptualize that, right? So introduced to business X, and they like, oh, I have this t-shirt company and I want to change the logo. I want the logo to be like da, 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 da. And you go into it because I know you, and you don't just say, oh, here's your logo. That's not what the concept of who you are is. So how do you conceptualize a brand identity package, or whatever that looks like?
Most people, I would imagine, I don't have to imagine it. I know that most people would approach that problem as like, hey, do you like this? This looks cool, or I think it's cool. It's like people have this very self-centered approach, whether it's from a different designer. It's like, oh, I think this is cool. I think I would buy this. So then boom. Or let's just say that you're dealing with a CEO or CMO or whoever, right? And they're like, I like it. They make like I statements, right? So that's I think that's incorrect, because
it's not about you, it's about the company
for the masses, right?
Yeah.
even if it's not for like a mass market, even if it's a small segment of a market, you have to acknowledge who wants this stuff, right? Or whether it could be, you know, a celebrity. I mean, it's not just a product. It could be anything, right? It could be a plant. You know, for some time they were running campaigns to better the perception of milk. Got milk.
Yes.
It wasn't any particular brand. They're just trying to make you think. They're trying to manipulate you into thinking that milk is good for you, that you should buy milk, right? And that's what it is. It's like they're branding milk. Their rebrand is cool. They have athletes. They have this. You know, they're rebranding milk. It's not, doesn't have to be a product itself. Like milk is a product, but it doesn't have to be. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't
like
have
a
to
singular
be like
thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but essentially, my approach is what can I do to bridge the world of business and the creative world, right? So that's ultimately what I want to do. Boom. What are your business goals? What do you want to do? Why are you even interested in rebranding? Like, what brings us here, right? And then you can just kind of start talking about, you know, business, how, and for me, like, I'm like a street business person, like, not in the literal way.
Yeah, no.
I've learned like by just trial and error. You know,
Yeah.
I guess I'm not doing that again. You know, that's kind of how I learned, like, or how I'm learning. I don't know anything, right? My whole approach is like, okay, well, I'm extremely creative. Like, I believe that I am world-class creative.
Absolutely.
Right? Put me up there, find the best creative you can possibly think of, and put me right there next to them, right?
It's kind of like I don't mean to cut you, but it's kind of like the Kanye thing of, I'm the Elon Musk of what I do. I'm the Walt Disney of what I do. Like, because you are in that caliber, whether people want to receive that or not. Your work also speaks for that, and your mindset in your brain. Exactly. Yeah. So continue. Sorry.
So, but how can I use my skills to like do better business, or how do I use my skills to meet business halfway, right? Or the way a certain person wants to do business, or a certain, you know, whatever. How can I use these skills to accomplish a goal? And then, you know, without going in too hard into it, or you know, or too detailed, I got processes for like how to identify a segment of a market that might be open to a company. For example, like if we talk about like different brands, right? So you'll have like okay, how about this? Let me ask you a question. What is a brand in any space that you think is cool?
A brand in any space that I think
or that is doing well, or whatever. Just give me a brand in any space. Preferably something that people know.
Okay, let's just do Louis Vuitton, because we all know it.
What a good example. Boom, Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton is clothes, right? Clothing and accessories, fashion. Boom. Louis Vuitton has defined their customer very, very, very well. Okay, Louis Vuitton is in competition with like a lot of different stuff, and this is how my brain thinks about this, right?
Yeah.
So Louis Vuitton is in competition with Chanel, Coach. Louis Vuitton is in competition with Gucci, but it's also with Zara and like H&M, right? They're all selling clothes. They sell clothes to very different people. So does somebody who go to Zara go to Louis Vuitton? Yes. But there are people who exclusively shop at each, right? So they come together like this, and they like a Venn diagram, they meet in the middle. But there's also people that go to Zara that cannot go to Louis Vuitton.
Got it.
There's people who go to Louis Vuitton that will never be caught dead in Zara. There's people.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Monique,
No. No. I
Would it be
can't.
called that? Would it not be called that in
You
that
are
store? It's
lying.
not
I
doing it.
do go to. But I do understand that concept, and market segments is super important
And
in what you're
so,
explaining. Yeah.
boom. So we just had like a segment of the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
But into that segment, there are more segments. So
Mm-hmm.
like, because you have like a brand like Louis Vuitton, but you have another brand like Gucci. They're very different. If
Mm-hmm.
you really get down to the nitty gritty, and who's buying, $1,000 pair of jeans and $1,500 pair of shoes and a $3,000 bag, if you really look at these things, Burberry, Prada, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, very different,
Absolutely.
fundamentally different.
Yep.
Like Gucci will have more of like a 70s, 60s, like
Mm-hmm.
hippie vibe. Louis Vuitton is different. Louis Vuitton, late as of late, with Virgil, it's like more edgy and street.
Mm-hmm.
And they all different. Boom, 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 boom. And so you look at an entire like landscape of brands and you say, wait, what's not happening? Maybe they don't have like goth luxury.
I got it.
See what I'm saying?
Okay. So you're looking for that
Boom, business
missing
opportunity.
piece. Yeah.
What's the missing piece? What can we do? What can we do if, like, let's just say we want to build a Louis Vuitton competitor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, maybe there's no goth there's no luxury goth. So why don't we just kind of like, without going too far, let's test those waters. Let's see what happens. Boom, you see that?
Yeah.
So that's a multi-million-dollar idea. You're welcome.
Very, very decide. So the closest thing that I can even think of that will come close to that is like a Alexander Wang. It's very street, but they also have like a part of it that gives you that edgy feel where it's the thick boots, it's the big chunky
Awesome.
stuff. So it's just looking for what you're saying is in doing that brand identity for a brand is looking for that missing piece. So kind of throw them against the wall, line it up and say, yes, you have a t-shirt or apparel company. These are who your competitors are. What's missing from your brand? And you kind of build that and design that for them or give them the idea of what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Okay.
That's
So
my approach. Everybody, so everyone who does this, either copies somebody who does it successfully
yeah.
or comes up with their own. I came up with my own process. And
Mm-hmm.
my belief is like, in order to do something that is going to stick and be remembered,
Yeah.
you have to do something that is different fundamentally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
So
that's
yeah.
one of the things I
And that's
love.
what brand positioning is, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is brand positioning. That is standing
Yeah.
out and being different than the competitors. And that's kind of what I
Yeah.
love about the way you work and how you work and the type of work that you produce, because all of what you just said kind of gets put on paper and you're like, damn, this is genius. Damn, this is like, I wouldn't think of that, or my mind wouldn't go there when I think of set brand or whatever that is. So in you conceptualizing that, what makes a good logo for anyone that, because a lot of people, when they think about rebranding, the only thing that they think about is, oh, I need a new logo, right?
Yeah.
So what is it that makes a good logo for any brand? Because we've seen companies change logos or do a rebrand. Burger King just did it where they changed their entire landscape of what they did. We see
Mm-hmm.
these brands. Starbucks a couple years ago redid their branding. Apple has redid their branding. What makes a good logo for any brand?
Well, the logo really is like 10% of the equation, 5% of the equation, right? And like, there's like a formula. It's just like making a soup, right? The logo is like salt, maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or like your seasoning. I don't know. I guess like the logo is like the amount of seasonings, or like your ratio of seasonings that you use, right? I think that like all of these things need to be examined individually, and see in how they come together for that. How do we want to how do we want this brand to be perceived?
Yeah.
Well, what are we gonna do about it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like?
Okay.
I just said branding, brand identity. What does that look like? Okay, all right, boom. So the logo's job is really just to brand. It's like when you put your name on the cow's ass, and it's like, that's my cow. When these cows go wandering, when your cow and my cow, when your 3 cows and my 4 cows go over there, and I gotta go get them, I gotta know which one is mine. I put my name on there on the cow's ass, right? That's the logo's job. It says, this
is mine.
Is whatever, exactly. And that's really what it does, right? So, and that's it. Like, you know, now logos have evolved to do a little more and to have different functions. But ultimately, that is the job of the logo, and that is what the logo must do, right? Okay. That is the bottom line. It's a marker. That's why it's called a mark. And so, what makes it good? That was the question, right?
Yeah, like what makes a good logo?
What makes it good? It's like a good logo is a good mark that says that is mine, no doubt. Don't talk to me, like that's mine, right? So for example, you put a Nike check on a shoe, that was made by Nike, right? And there are no other ones that look like it. Therefore, anything with a check is Nike.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I think
it's very, very easy, very, very simple. Now, there's so many like, so that's the logo's job. So what makes it good? It's unique. There are so many. I have personally a set of like requirements the logo has to meet in order for me to even show it to a client if I did something, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So like those. It has to be perfectly legible, black and white. If it has to work black and white. Okay. Because color is like a thing now, and people do, and it gets really intricate and like gradients and like there's no telling to what people are gonna suggest things should be. But if it doesn't work black and white, then it doesn't work. Because like let's just say you start a hair salon and you need to put a sign outside of your building and you make it into a franchise, and now you have 350 stores, and you gotta boom, and your logo has 2 things in color that go over each other, and you can see them in color, but the shopping center says it's one color, because a lot
yes.
A lot of places don't have like different color signs. Yep. Hey, one color. If it doesn't work in black and white, it doesn't work. Right?
That's good.
So that's like really one of my requirements. It needs to work on the biggest thing right now too. Needs to work like this size. So like when you go on Instagram and it has your handle and it has a little circle in there. If your logo is not distinctive, that's smaller than your pinky nail, right? If the logo is not distinctive in there, then it also doesn't work, right? So it has to the modern logo has one of the requirements is that it has to shed all of the detail in order to be distinctive at this size, right? So
Lawrence, I feel like you cracked the code, because you always say a logo necessarily doesn't depict the brand. It's just part of the brand identity. And I think you kind of just explained it perfectly, where it's just like the logo it has to work everywhere. And what I like what you just said was, in the shop, because my mind would never go there, like, oh, if you put it on like a sign, because a lot of people, okay, let's just be transparent here, right? A lot of people, especially business owners or smaller business owners who want to climb the ladder, we're not talking about like corporate, because they have people like yourself that are in-house, that are branding and designing.
Exactly. I'm advising them and telling them, hey.
Yeah. So for smaller businesses who are like, oh, they want a logo, and you present something that's simple, futuristic, and they're like, oh no, but it doesn't say our name, and they want their name to be in it. They want that one thing, it's just, you kind of define it just now as to why that, not saying your name isn't important, but your logo doesn't, it needs to shed all of that stuff. So you don't have to tell me in your
Yeah, yeah.
logo, excuse me, that you're a coffee shop. You don't have to tell me in your logo that you are a
Good
hair
point.
salon. So I think you really just explained that perfectly.
There, that's a great point. Actually, I could even expand on what you were saying. It's like people get caught up that the name of the brand, if it's a business, the
Yeah.
name of a brand has to say what the company does. That's one thing that you just mentioned. And well, let's just stop there. So that's a you're literally like loading a pistol and aiming it right at your leg, right? Um, because like let's just say, all right, so we come out with this company selling pens. We got the best pens for the best prices, and this is gonna be like life changing, right? All right, so we started this company and we called it Monique's and Lawrence's Pens. Actually, you know what? Let's call it Ultra. Ultra pens. Now, if we in 5 years decide to sell mugs, the company sees Ultra pens, bro.
Yeah.
How can you grow from that, right? So I believe that it is branding. A lot of times is a reducing process, right? It's a process of reduction versus a additive process. You know what I'm saying? People are like, well, you know, our company is trustworthy, and boom, and these are our values. Our logo needs to say that. What are you doing in the logo that says that you can trust us? Nothing. That's not the logo's job, bro. Like the logo's job is to say Ultra. Now we're gonna run campaigns and we're gonna do this and that and the other. That's gonna say all of those other things, right?
Yes,
But
yes,
that's
yes.
not the logo's job.
Yeah.
It's like it's like in sports, if you put your guy in first base in baseball to play somewhere else,
Midfield or
when
something,
you
yeah.
throw a ball to first base, nobody's gonna catch it. Got to put your first baseman there.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I think that's a really great point. And we can speak about like logos and that whole concept for probably for like 2 hours. But I do want to transition a little bit. I do want to get into so, you know, we've worked together for many years now. And I think you spoke about you were in graphic design school. I met you when you were in graphic design school. So I saw the process and the transition to kind of where you are now. But one of the things that when we first started working together, me being in marketing and you being in design and art, was not, I don't want to say we clashed, but we just didn't understand each other in the sense of you were so creative and I was just so analytical, right? Like if we wanted to be a bit transparent. So I would be like, oh, Lawrence, I need a graphic for this email. And then you will make something so great. And I'm just like, but this doesn't translate. So I kind of had to learn your language and then vice versa, right? So I want to kind of, and even for web, right? So we work with the web department and kind of why is it important for, like you said, like the logo or images or whatever. Why is it so important, and or not even why, how important is it for the creative or someone like yourself to understand other parts of the business? So for you to understand the marketing side and for you to understand the website, because some people think that, oh, I'm just a creative, I just need to create and that's it. How important as a designer is it for you to understand those other parts of the business?
It's extremely important. It's incredibly important. Well, in business, it's important that the designer understands a lot of different things because they are ultimately the very last line of communication before that customer, right? So all of that needs to get across, right? But again, you know, these are things that come with like experience. You have to knock your head long enough to one day be like, oh, hurts. This is a better way, right?
Yes.
Or maybe you don't have to do it many times. You just fail, learn lesson, fail, lesson. So yeah. But it's like I think it's extremely important because nothing is ever really one dimensional, and so you have to really, and especially for designers, you have to offer a perspective that is three-dimensional and it's going to be understood, etc.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. The last thing, because I literally we can go on and on about a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I do want to kind of pick your brain on is what for business owners that can hire full staff, because we know for brand, like all of this stuff to work really well is for you to have people in house to do some of these things, or have someone that you can pick up the phone or have your team say, oh, reach out to this brand or reach out to this agency or reach out to them. If you're not able as a business to hire a full agency to do all of these things, or to hire a team in-house to do all of these things, and we know like places like Fiverr is online, and a lot of people who don't have the means go to places like that. How,
Yeah.
if you have to outsource work, what should you look for in the person that you're outsourcing it to? So I have a business and I want to outsource work to someone like yourself, to your agency. What should I be looking for in a creative agency when I'm outsourcing, or a creative when I'm outsourcing work?
There's two sides, right? So you're hiring a freelancer, or maybe you're hiring a whole agency,
Mm-hmm.
Because even hiring an agency is still probably cheaper than building your own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
But so if what I would do, this is, if I have a business and I'm looking for, marketing or creative people, and if I'm looking for a freelancer, I would say like, or a freelancer, I would make sure somebody that's like a great person that I think I would vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Number one,
Mm-hmm.
I would make sure that they are successful at what they do. There's always going to be somebody better or worse or whatever, but if somebody's successful,
yeah, thumbs
great.
up. Yeah, okay.
They figure something out. Something, communication skills, and possibly like a good track record. Like who have you worked with? What were their results? Where are they now?
Yes.
What kind of other people do you work with?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is your network like, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would now approach like hiring an individual. Or if it's this is in an area where I have zero to little expertise.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
If I have expertise, I'll probably get somebody. I'll look for somebody with potential, right? And I can guide them through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not my area of expertise, that's it. If it's an agency, definitely I would look for an agency that's like, has a great track record working with other businesses, that has a positive track record, right? I would say that most agencies are kind of a scam.
No, they're not. I'm an agency. I'm not a scam.
But you know what I'm saying?
Like, no, yeah, and like low turnover rate for clients, because if you have an agency that has high turnover rate for, they just keep getting new creators, obviously something within the agency that's kind of off.
Right. Or maybe something there's a problem, right? Okay. So and you when you're hiring someone at this level, a lot of times you're giving them your life savings, or you're giving them a good amount of money that you're not comfortable with losing. And so it's important that you make sure somebody like, you're not getting scammed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You're placing a good bet, essentially. References, obviously everybody's going to give you people that's good, but look for references. Mm-hmm. Case studies, before afters. It's hard to hire an agency. I think it's easier to hire an individual than an agency. Mm-hmm. Agency is really hard. and I think I might be alone in this because like I've seen the inside of an agency, you know, where you have somebody who's extremely brilliant. That's the person who the client speaks to. Somebody who is very savvy. Somebody who has got their shit together, successful, everything. But a lot of times, you know, if you go depending on the size, right? Mm-hmm. So like me, like I'm involved on. I touch almost everything because I don't even want to grow. Like it's, you know, because it's me. I'm the brand, right?
Yeah.
So, if imagine I had, you know, 60 clients and 15 employees, 30 employees, right? I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that I'll speak to somebody, they see my brilliance and they're like, oh man, let's do that. And I think people are gonna do the thing that I want, but that never happens.
Yeah.
People do their thing and work always ends up going to somebody who is just kind of like learning or lost or doesn't give a shit, you know.
Or even if you teach
don't care.
them, yeah, even if you're the person that kind of teach them, it's still something gets missing along the way.
Yeah. And also like you build a relationship. For me, I work with very few people. And so like I build relationships with people I work with. And I want them to like be so successful. And I want everything I touch, I want them to do really well. But if I'm giving that to somebody else that doesn't care,
mm-hmm.
then it's just never gonna be as good, right? And,
absolutely.
And you can see, and you can tell. So it's hard to hire an agency. It's very hard.
And I think some of the pointers that you gave for freelancers, you can apply some of that to the agency just at a deeper level. So I think that's really great. Lawrence, I feel like I need to bring you back on the show because there's so many things that I didn't touch on, like photography and videography and like why good photography works with branding. So I'm going to definitely bring you back on the show. But for now, tell our audience where they can see your work or where they can contact you and reach out to you.
Instagram, Lawrence Chappe. I think it's lawrence.chappe, lawrencechappe.com. That's pretty much it.
Okay. And I always like to ask everyone when we come on the show, what is one piece of advice that you've gotten that has kind of helped you to where you are today? I stumped him.
Invest in yourself. Invest hard, early. Invest a lot. Invest more than anything. Invest in yourself hardcore. Mm-hmm.
Invest in yourself and invest early. That's key.
And invest on everything. And just invest. Whatever that means to you, just invest.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. That's good. Lawrence, again, I want to thank you for coming on to this episode of the podcast, guys. If you've gotten this far and you enjoy the content that you were listening to or you're watching, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not subscribed. Go ahead and like us, share, tell your friends and your family members. Until next time, I'll see you again on another episode of Conversation with Muse.
Welcome. Yeah.